Welcome to Called to Homeschool with your host, Meg Thomas. I am a mother of 7 with 5 homeschool graduates. Each week, we'll talk about real-life homeschool, mindset shifts, and practical tools you can use in your home. Because homeschooling isn't just about school, it's about restoring the family. Hi, welcome back to Called to Homeschool. Always excited to be here. Friends, I love that I have people signing up for these in-person workshops. So in case you haven't heard, I am doing my first in-person workshops this summer. And I have one here in American Fork, Utah on Saturday, June 7th. And now I'm adding one in Wisconsin. It is in New Berlin, which is near Milwaukee. So anybody in that area, I know Chicago is near that. That one will be Friday, July 10th. And you can find out more about those on my website at coachmegthomas.com. And if you would like to host an in-person workshop, just email me at support@coachmegthomas.com and we'll work out all the details and add one in your area. So really excited about that. Well, today's question comes from Sadie from Tennessee. And I'm going to kind of go through her question and answer it as I read it. And it worked a little bit easier that way for my brain. So hopefully that works for you too. And if you have a question for the podcast, make sure you go to it is either on my Instagram at Coach Meg Thomas or in my weekly newsletter is the link for those. So she says, I'm a mom of 3 and just recently found out I'm pregnant with number 4. I've been homeschooling for 2 years with my 8-year-old, and she also has a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And my oldest went to kindergarten and first grade in public school, and we decided to pull her out for a number of reasons. I had thought about homeschooling for a while, and we finally made the choice to do that. I have loved it. I really like being creative and coming up with our lessons. A lot of what we do is nature-based and we spend a lot of time outside. I really lean into the Charlotte Mason type philosophy. So her question is more about time management and consistency. Anybody else struggle with some of those things? She says, I feel like I have a lot of motivation to do these things some weeks, and then some weeks I don't. I try to schedule things ahead of time, but then don't follow through or days fall apart. What can I do to work on time management and consistency? I know this is more of a personal problem and not really a homeschool problem, except they are one and the same, right? When you're homeschooling, like everything just kind of comes together. So let's talk about time management. Time cannot be managed. It is just there. If you feel like you never have enough time, let's dive into that. So one of the things you can really do if you are struggling, like I never have enough time to do things, is actually to reflect and go back and look at your last week and start reviewing things of seeing where you spent your time. And one of the easiest places to do this is your phone. And so going into your phone settings and seeing where am I spending my time? So am I checking out on social media for hours? Looking in your calendar, do I spend too much time saying yes to too many things? I've had to help so many clients learn how to protect their homeschool hours because it is our job. So we need to treat it as such. And that means that you might need to say no to things that take away your time from your family. Then you need to look at your priorities. Do your priorities match where you spend your time? So, for example, if you have a priority for your health, are you spending time working out or prepping food? If you aren't making time for your priorities, things often feel off. So lots of times you write down your top 5 priorities. Like these are the things that are the most important to me. And if everything's a priority, nothing is a priority. So you have to pick your top 5. So maybe it is homeschool. Maybe it is some quality time for yourself. Maybe it is your house, keeping that up to date. Your relationship with your spouse, whatever it is for you, great. But looking at those top 5 priorities and then looking how you spent your time last week and saying like, okay, homeschool is a really huge priority to me. How much time did I actually spend doing that last week? Well, I didn't. Interesting. So I am not respecting my priorities. When you start being intentional with your time, you will start to see how much time you really have. And that's why I like doing priorities, because you can start seeing if I'm putting too many other things in my schedule that are not part of my priorities or that are things that are taking me away from my priorities. So when you are planning your week, you need to put yourself first in the schedule, right? And you're welcome to just go for it. But if you are feeling like don't have enough time or things are always falling through the cracks, you really want to go through some of these things. So the first one is putting yourself in your calendar. And that can be things like the gym. Do you want to hang out with your friends? Do you want to do something for yourself? Get up early and read a book or study. When you plan your school, when do you work? If you work, sleep. all of those things. So scheduling that in yourself first so that you know that you are not running on empty and that you are going to be taken care of. Then you schedule your kids. When are you doing school? When are you doing chores? Are there appointments you need to go to? Are there park days that week? Extracurricular activities. This is a great time to see if you have too many extracurriculars, and you may need to simplify this area. It's so interesting. Sometimes as homeschoolers, we forget to go home sometimes. And not that you have to do all your homeschool at home, but I see too many mamas just like running on empty and so frazzled, and it's because they're involved in way too many activities. And usually that's a fear-based thing. Like, I don't want my kid to feel like they're being left out of something. And so I really like just having a one activity rule, or if it's really simple or somebody's coming to my house, then maybe another one, right? But sometimes these things, like if you are going to a park day, what's the prep time that goes into that? So it's not just park day 10 to noon. But what is the time it takes to prep for that park day, to drive to that park day, and then come home from that park day, get everybody situated after? So really looking at how much time those things are actually taking. So you put yourself in the schedule, put your kids' stuff in the schedule, and then you schedule in things that you'd like to get done. Or maybe these are some of those priorities too, right? Of grocery shopping, laundry, other things that you're in charge of, whether this is your work or just things that you do to manage your house. And this can also overlap with your kids, right? So if grocery shopping, maybe that's something you do as a family. Laundry, you could do all together, housework, those types of things. Then you're going to put this all on your calendar and you're going to see if it even fits, right? So if you're like, well, I get up at 7 and then I have this list of 100 things I want to do, it's not going to fit. So if it doesn't fit, you need to start to say no to some things or figure something else out. Maybe you don't want to go grocery shopping and spending time doing that. So you spend less time by driving to the store, right? Packing everybody up, going to the store, buying the groceries, coming home, right? Maybe you're like, that's not worth it to me, but I can hop on for 15 minutes, order it all up online and have it delivered to my house, or order it all online and go into a pickup service. So you get to kind of play around and see, like, this actually doesn't work in my schedule. We need to let some things go or simplify the way we do them. You also may want to leave some free time in there so that your whole day is not completely structured of like the first 10 minutes we do this, the second 10 minutes we do this. I think I've heard it called block schedules or something like that. I kind of like the idea of that because we don't start school like exactly at 9 or exactly at 10, but we have just like my mornings are protected. We do school in the mornings, right? And so you may have some block time of like, hey, 2 to 4 in the afternoon is just kind of our free time. And if something fun pops up, it does. And if not, we keep it as free time, right? So kind of looking at all of those things. So you've scheduled yourself, scheduled your kids, scheduled some of those priorities, and then navigating and seeing if it actually fits and works. And then you follow your calendar. And you're not always going to be in the mood to follow your calendar, right? Especially if it says, hey, it's time to do laundry. And you're like, I don't really feel like doing laundry. And that's why you always want to have a thought ready, because you're not always going to want to feel like doing something. When I doing school in the morning, right? I may feel like I really don't want to today, but I have a thought ready of this is my job. I am in charge of my kids' education. This is going to be fun, whatever the thought is for you. I've also been reading a book by Mel Robbins, and she talks about counting backwards from 5 to 1 and then getting up and going and talking about the science of your brain, how counting backwards and kind of giving yourself this boost to go of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, get up and go, basically, and doing the things that's starting to train your brain to do the things that you have a hard time following through with. So whatever method helps you, having a thought, having that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, just to get you up and going, because motivation is fleeting and motivation is just a feeling, right? So you need a thought to help you when you don't feel like doing something. Another idea with this, because you do have children and children aren't always the most predictable people on this planet, is having a floor and a ceiling. So floors and ceilings help us to, like, a ceiling is, this is my ideal day. The stars have aligned. All of my children are behaving just beautifully. I have this amazing lesson plan and we do all of it. That is our ceiling. That is our dream. That is what we hope will happen. But a floor gives us something to catch us when things feel off. Somebody's sick. Somebody had a blowout. Somebody's crying, right? So a floor is the bare minimum of things you can do in 1 minute or less. So I've shared this before, but our floor with scriptures is to just say, go Jesus, and say a prayer so that we are keeping in the habit of coming together and doing something and still saying a prayer. So our scripture may just be go Jesus, and then we say a prayer, right? And on most days, it's not that. And it's usually somewhere in between. So with your school, or chores or whatever you have on there of having floors and ceiling. And a true floor can be done in a minute or less. So if you're like, I want to make sure we are building consistency, having the floor of we're going to do a read aloud for at least 1 minute. We're going to clean for 1 minute, right? And a ceiling is the whole house is spotless, right? But with children, it's so good to have these floors because we don't want to beat ourselves up when we can't get to something. But when we have something so simple that even if you're sick, even if things are feeling off or a baby sick, having that floor helps you to keep the consistency to keep going. And that consistency is building it as a habit. So it's like, this is just what we do. So for next part of her question, she talks about hearing on the podcast that I talked about having something to look forward to, like an adventure every week. And I love that. I definitely relate to that. And my answer to that is that if that works for you, great. Add it to your calendar. For me, it can be so simple. In the summertime, my favorite thing to do is to go to the pool. And we have it scheduled in to go once a week, and usually with cousins, sometimes with neighbor friends, but I love to go to the pool. So for me, it's as simple as that. Her next part of her question says, I feel motivated to put rhythms into place, and then I feel like because I don't have a consistent schedule or rhythm that I just give in too easily and kind of let the kids do whatever they want. But I don't want to be that way. I also am really bad at breaking habits. I give in to myself really easily, or I give myself too much grace. So with this, giving into kids and whatnot, you're right, you need consistency, and that's why I like the floors and ceilings to help us to be consistent. But when we can utilize happy habits too, of like, hey, we get our chores done and then we get this thing, or if we don't do our chores, we don't get that thing. You can download Happy Habits on my website, www.coachmegthomas.com. And that really helps you, to practice. And really, you could put yourself in that as well of being consistent with your own happy habits. And so that way you are breaking habits that you don't want to keep and breaking habits with your kids that maybe you just let them do whatever they want of like, no, this is what we're going to do because we want to create these rhythms. So as you want to create these rhythms, looking at what rhythms do you currently have and what do you want to have? So maybe you have some rhythms that the kids just whine and they get out of it, right? We sometimes have unintended rhythms that we don't want to keep, that the kids just get up and get on screens and it's just not working, right? And so it's like, okay, what do you want? Do you want people to get up and go on a walk together? Do you want to get up and eat breakfast together? Do you want to get up and do scriptures together, right? Like, what is the rhythm that you want? And so being really intentional, like this is the rhythm we have, this is the rhythm we want. And do the same thing with your schedule. What is our current schedule and what is the schedule we'd like to have? And I love going over this with clients with what is the schedule you would like to have and the rhythm you'd like to have, because sometimes it's not even a ceiling, it's a roof or the sky. Sometimes it's so big and so impossible. So looking at it and making sure it is realistic. And part of that, like sometimes people will say like, I want to get up at 4 a.m. and have all this time to myself, but then they can't get to bed until after 11. So they're going to try to function on 5 hours of sleep all day with all of these children. So simple things like that, I think, is it feasible, right? I don't know that you want to be just hopped up on caffeine all day, probably not the best thing for you. So thinking of like, I'm all for dreaming big, but we also need to, with creating some of these things, realize we only have so much time in a day. So being a little bit realistic with that. And so with habits, we talked about breaking bad habits and having a hard time sticking to them. Sometimes those habits are too big and it's just impossible to do them. And so that's why I like to come back to those floors and ceilings of like, what are the habits we want? What are the rhythms we want? What is the schedule we want? And do I have a floor for those types of things? So if I want a habit of going on a little walk with my kids, a floor is we go stand outside for 1 minute, right? We walk out our front door, we walk around our yard, we walk down the sidewalk and back, whatever it is that we can do in 1 minute or less. And so looking at some of those habits that you want to create and having some floors because we want to build consistency. And all the books that I like about habits are Atomic Habits, Tiny Habits, right? Of just those simple, small things, small and simple things, right? That we can do consistently is where we're going to create some really amazing stuff. Then she talks about that she's worried about her fourth baby coming along and that things will fall apart if I don't start now. So I would love to put something into place well before the baby comes. So, which is great. She has 8 months to do so. And so, really deciding like, what is a rhythm we want with the baby coming? So, right, so you may have some rhythms you want to be creating now and some schedules you want to be creating now. And then it's what do I want it to be when the baby comes? So maybe it's I want to have the 8-year-old being able to prepare breakfast for their younger siblings. And it can be as simple as cereal. Maybe putting toast in the toaster and putting jam on it, right? Whatever that is, of like, this is what I want with that new baby. And then we can ease back into stuff as I start getting sleep or the baby gets a little bit easier, right? But really thinking of what is the rhythm I want with the baby. And with that, I'm such a big fan of skills, and I'm doing this whole summer skill list ideas on Instagram at Coach Meg Thomas and Facebook of ideas for each week. But thinking about what skills do you want your kids to have before the baby comes? So, do you want them to know how to make their beds, clean their rooms, do laundry? Kids are really, really capable of a lot of these things. Can they cook basic things, cleaning? Maybe you have pets. Do you want to be able to help in the yard, getting along, etc.? So picking one skill at a time and working on it until it becomes a habit. And so you may pick one that would be the most helpful, like maybe it's meals, teaching them how to do something. Maybe that's cleaning. And when you start teaching a skill, you do it together. So that you and the 3 little kids and maybe the 2-year-old's going to float in and out, but the 8 and the 4-year-old for sure are really teaching them how to do these things. And your 8-year-old is going to grab these skills even faster. So you can even then allow your 8-year-old to be the helper to the 4-year-old or the 2-year-old. And so that like everybody's learning these skills. And when I did it with my oldest 3. And then they all had a buddy of the next 3. So I was really helping them to master these skills quickly. And then they would help their buddy master these skills. And so we just can't be everywhere. So as we're helping and like an 8-year-old really get good at these skills, then they can start helping the 4-year-old or the 2-year-old or whatever that looks like for you guys, so that you have as many people as possible knowing how to do some of these skills. And a 2-year-old's not going to be super helpful, right? But a 4-year-old could probably do more than we give them credit for. And then after the baby is born, you can decide how much time do you want to take off of school. For one of my babies, I took off 5 months. Do not feel bad about that at all. My kids played a lot. They watched educational shows. They went to the library. We went to parks, the pool, all sorts of fun things. After my last baby, I only took 1 week off. So do what feels right for your family. You can make a really loose plan of what you would like to do when the baby comes. But then maybe being willing to adapt of like, hey, let's just keep some of these life skills going. And so that school's getting easier and easier and running our home is easier. So really reviewing of where am I and where is it I want to go, whether that's with your calendar, but scheduling, rhythm, and then do one skill at a time. So as you prepare for this new baby, remember that the goal isn't to create the perfect schedule. Your goal is to create a family culture that can weather different seasons of life. Some weeks will be smooth. Some weeks will feel really messy. Some days you're going to follow the plan beautifully, and some days you want to throw the plan out the window, and that's okay. The moms who thrive aren't the ones who are motivated every single day. They're the ones who keep coming back to what matters most. They know their priorities, they build simple rhythms, and they focus on progress instead of perfection. You have 8 months before this baby arrives, and that is plenty of time to start building skills, creating routines, and helping your children become more independent. Pick one thing, work on it until it becomes a habit, and then move on to the next thing. Remember, you're not just homeschooling your children, you're building a family. And the beautiful thing about family is that everyone can learn to contribute. And you've got this, Mama, one rhythm, one habit, one day at a time. Thanks so much for listening to Call to Homeschool. If today's episode was helpful, the best way you can support the show is by leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more homeschool moms find this work, and I appreciate it so much.